This is not a dream.
Phil walks the tree line when the sun goes down. Boots in the gravel on the edge of town. Backpack rattles with a lantern and a map, looking for the things that never make the trap. Old folks whisper when they see him pass. Boys been chasing shadows in the midnight grass. But Phil just smiles at the cold night air, 'cause something out there knows he's there. In the rustle of leaves, in the creak of the pine, in the fog where the footprints twist the line. He's the Dogman TP hunter, roaming through the night, chasing ghostly echoes in the pale moonlight. From forgotten forests to the deserts deep, where the old bones hide and the spirits creep. With a camera and courage and a trail to see, he'll follow any legend through eternity. Yeah, the world's full of whispers most folks never see, but they all know Phil. He slept in ruins where the cold winds cry, watch strange lights dancing in a cold black sky. Track band branches where the tall grass sways, heard something breathing in the forest haze. Every dusty road and every haunted bed holds another secret he's about to defend. And when the fire burns low and the coyotes sing, you can bet he's hunting something strange again. Through the static and dark, through the myth and the lore, there's a howl in the hills he can't ignore. He's the Dogman TP hunter, roaming through the night, chasing ghostly echoes in the pale moonlight. From forgotten forests to the deserts deep, where the old bones hide and the spirits creep. With a camera and courage and a trail to see, he'll follow any legend through eternity. Yeah, the world's full of whispers most folks never see, but they all know Phil. But they all know Phil. Maybe it's a shadow, maybe something real, maybe ancient footprints only he can feel. But the truth lives somewhere past the tree running wild and free.
Hello, welcome, and happy Friday. Welcome to the Friday Night Files. So pleased you could make it. Yeah, we've got a very special guest on. It's all about information. Almost a forming of thought. We spoke about this a little while back. We spoke about a few weeks back about thought forms, egregores, tulpas. But this one goes a little bit further, a little deeper. Biocentrism comes to mind. But first, I just want to say it's a very special day as well. And not only have we got a fabulous guest on, we've also got the Gothic goddess of YouTube. Yes, co-host, and I shall bring her up. 3, 2, 1, just in case she's fiddling with her hair. Let's have a look. Hello.
Oh,
Hi,
I
how
have
you doing?
arrived.
Yes, let me just put you on that screen. That's better, isn't it? There you go. Oof, yeah.
I need
That's
to move
it.
my camera now.
Yeah.
I was in the perfect placement until you moved me. There we go.
What t-shirt have you got? What's that t-shirt?
Zombie.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that a zombie apple?
No, it's a zombie.
Oh, it's actually a zombie. I've got a Dogman with UFOs.
That's a cool one.
Yeah, because it's quite an auspicious day, really, because Trump has released some files, limited photographs. Which is I've just been shuffling through them just a little bit earlier, while I was trimming my beard.
Right.
That's
why your beard's a bit lopsided, is it? Because you're looking
That's
at the
right.
photos, it's all like wonky.
What's that splodge?
It's like, it's beard hair on the screen. That's what it is.
Yeah. I was trying to make out what, but yeah, some quite interesting ones, but yeah, it was, but we'll bring that up. I've got the website up, so I'm going to bring it up just to show people anyway if they haven't seen already. But I'm sure a lot of it is on social media at the moment and being shared out. But I have my own views, as I invariably do, on it. Yeah, so other than that, how have you been anyway, generally?
No, not too bad. I've been trying to catch up with the gardening this week while it's not raining.
Yeah.
Before the weeds get over and I can't plant anything. I'm very good at growing weeds. I'm not very good at growing veg.
Right, yeah.
I'm afraid. If I could eat all the weeds that grew in my allotment, I'd be like made for life. But
yeah, they're quite they're quite easy to propagate, aren't they? With weeds, they're quite easy to do.
Yeah,
you can always turn it into a
phase.
wild garden. That's what I do with our garden. I just say, look, there's weeds everywhere and stuff, and I just like it's a wild garden. It's to attract
It's for the bees.
and
It's all about the bees.
yeah. Well, actually, it's just because I'm a lazy oik who can't be getting out there. To be honest,
I just say, oh, the weeds are pretty. I'll leave them there because they're flowering and they look pretty.
Yeah,
that's my excuse.
Yeah. I'm very lucky with the weather at the moment, actually. Very lucky. Right. The guest we've got on, I'm looking forward to this because he has been on social media an awful lot. More than me.
Wow. That's impressive.
And I'm like, what?
That's competition, that is, isn't it?
Yeah. And usually I'm plastered all around, don't I? So
Yeah.
I know. So so I got a bit like my nose put out of joint a bit, It's like competition. Yeah, all right. So we shall bring up Ryan Kralik. I hope I spelled Kralik. Kralik. I'm sure I spelled that right. Okay. Yes. Hello. Let me change that round a little bit. There we go. Hello, Ryan.
Hello, it is Kralik, by the way.
It is Kralik.
You had
Excellent.
it first time. You should not have second guessed yourself. Also, this is for you.
What is it?
Hey,
Great
job.
Great job.
Upon you for best intro music of any podcast I've done.
Oh wow! Thank
I'll never
you
hear
so
the end
much.
of this now.
Oh,
That
best
song's
intro
gonna
music.
be everywhere.
It is a good song, and at first I was like, "Is this modern country?"
uh-huh.
Yeah, I suppose it does sound quite like modern country.
In the
doesn't it? 'Cause it's more
UK?
upbeat, yeah. Oh, we do
Yeah.
have some country here.
Well,
Sort
that's
of.
a shame. That's a shame.
Yeah.
We have to deal with it here.
Well, yeah, it's obligatory, isn't it, over there?
Yeah, you
Pretty
can't get
much.
away from it. But you're you
No.
guys by choice. But
Yeah.
no, wonderful song, wonderful.
Thank you.
Loved it.
Well, I must admit the full credit goes to a lady by the name of Kate Moonbeam, and she took a load of kind of like information on us and shoved it into AI, as you can guess, and it just coughed up with that song. So all credit to her, really, because even though AI is a wonderful, wonderful tool, it can only work with the information it's given. So it's credit to her for actually putting the information in. So yeah, I quite like it, and as I say, it's quite catchy. I'm just waiting to get an album together. Really, once an album's put together, then I'll probably release the whole lot, and that'll be my title single.
Probably do a tour.
I think
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Sorry,
I think
I shouldn't have laughed
Ryan,
then.
yeah, I don't know why you're laughing, Natalie. I really
No,
No,
actually.
I
Hold
need
on
to
a
be
minute.
very
Wait a minute.
serious.
Natalie, behave yourself. All right, please
keep
behave
me in
yourself.
mind if you need somebody to tech for you. I've got just loads of experience with god awful, depths of hell level tours. So
there you go.
Okay.
I have
You've got an
experience.
American tour there set up already. We've got our
Wow.
techie.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think we'll have to talk about that definitely, because before you came on, you did mention that you play the ukulele as well, don't you?
I do play the ukulele.
Yeah, I can do a damn good, Ryan. I can do a damn good I Go Window Cleaning song.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Right, I haven't got the ukulele with me, but I can sort of just like sing it, and pretend I can do it air ukulele.
No,
Right?
ukulele. This is
No,
a first.
excuse
I
me,
think in the
Natalie.
I can
entire
mental
world.
AI the ukulele in.
I
got
let's
you.
do that up. Yeah, afterwards we'll do that for sure. Right. Here we go. I go window cleaning all the day. And it goes on. I can't remember the rest of it. I can get the lyrics up, but it's that I'll do that bit again, all right, just in case you missed it.
Okay.
I go window cleaning, and you can notice it's much smaller, right? It'll be a lot of I go window cleaning all it, and it's really very good. I've done that 3 times. Can't believe that. I'll never live that down. But that's okay. That it will probably go pretty viral when
I would
people
expect
chop that
so.
up. Yeah, people will chop that up and they'll
That's gonna get
use that
TikToked.
as some weird sort of meme or something. I don't know. But
There's a
anyway,
really
thank you very
famous-
much for coming on the show. I'm sure that you're about to go, because after that conversation, I don't blame you if you do. But you've written a book, a very, I feel, important book.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Was that a prompt? I meant to talk about it now.
No, I can bring it. I've
No,
got
he
loads.
does that. He does that, Ryan. Don't worry about it.
They don't put me
He's-
on a lot of live shows.
Yeah, it takes
No,
him a
that's
little while
fine.
to get going. So, I mean, if you need to prompt, I'll do that. But no, just
Okay.
don't worry about it. It's like he
You
does
point
do
to me,
that.
you go.
Yeah, I'll be like, your
that.
turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to show, just so people just give them background of what we're talking about. Let me get it up. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll leave getting it up on screen because Ryan's already got it there. Yeah.
On Whitley Strieber, it went like this.
You came prepared, sir.
Yeah. Oh, that's impressed. I like the effects here.
I do.
It's old
I
school.
like that. It's actually quite dramatic.
Old school.
You know?
We've yeah, between the invisible air ukulele and the old school effects. This is great. I love it.
Yeah, that was really quite dramatic. I quite like that.
It was.
You know? Yeah. If you put my music to that, him doing that with the book, with Ryan doing the book, that would have worked. So,
Right.
Ryan, have you seen the photos that came out today about those UFOs from the government?
I haven't. I did watch this morning this radio show that I've been on before, popped into my feed, and they said, "Oh, we're looking at the videos as soon as they come out." And I looked at a couple, watched what they were looking at. Wasn't too impressed, but we're talking about like 3 minutes. So I haven't seen anything that they've put out.
All right. Wait there, because it's a big day. It's a big day. I think it's a big day. Just I'm just going to pop it up because it all has. This has got a strong correlation to what we're going to be talking about with your book, anyway. All right, it's got so. Let me just get it out. Let's have a look. Okie dokie. Right, here we go. Let's get that bigger. Badump. Right, it says actual site photo with FBI lab rendered graphic overlay depicting corroborating eyewitness reports from September 2023 of an apparent ellipsoid bronze metallic object materializing out of a bright light in the sky. 130 to 195 feet in length and disappearing instantaneously. Now I think out of all the photos, I think that one is possibly the most important, even though
The
it's a
United
render.
States government put that out?
Yeah, this website is let's have a look. Let's close that up, Ryan. Yeah, US Department of War website. Now if I go, here we go. Right. Donald J. Trump, Truth Social. Based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, and unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America. So yes, I think it's all it's about time, but it was prompted because obviously he would like, I think, to be the first to bring material out, obviously. And if anything, I think Obama probably helped with that, by Obama saying previously, aliens did exist, even though he retracted it and said it was just a bit of a joke. But so I think it probably lever-barred Trump into this. So we've got another one here. I don't even see that. Sort of a squiggle here.
Yeah,
They're
that's like the ones
very-
that I saw earlier. They're like,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
They're so undefined. They're like still from a video. This is a still photo from a video that a US military operator reported as featuring UAP flying across their screen. and then you've got a square blob,
It's square blob.
thing.
Mhm.
Well, yeah,
Technical
yeah. I mean,
term
well,
here. It's like, is that
well,
actually?
well,
Those are
okay, all right.
redactions.
I was going to say, I think those are actually, yeah, I agree.
I redact the blob, a square, okay? We've got a black square. And you've got a little white thing which looks a little bit like a kind of a sperm or something on screen.
Looks like a
But yeah,
thumbtack.
there. But that
So we've got the
doesn't-
tic tac and we've got the thumbtack.
yes.
That one's the
Yes.
thumbtack.
Okay, you can have that one for free, all right?
All right.
Okay, you can have that one for free. Sperm tack, right? Yeah, it's all they're all really all defined. No, there's no clarity to any of these really. This was quite an interesting one. A US military operator reported UAP near Greece flying straight above the ocean towards land. Right.
That appears to
Okay.
be clouds. Who was in charge of this release?
I was going to say this is very kind of what I expected, to be fair, but I was expecting something a little bit less.
It's
hazy.
just, it's painful. I find it really quite painful.
Oh, this one's interesting.
Yeah.
There's
That
your
one's a
sperm.
bit more like, yeah.
I mean that is quite interesting, that one. Do you know if they were in a petri dish, then I would say yeah, they're bacteria. That's the way they look. They don't really look very well defined as a ships. They're not at all angular. If anything, they look organic to me.
Well, the photographic equipment that they've got on these military aircraft. I mean, they're designed to capture other kinds of data, not like TMZ paparazzi zoom in pictures of things. It's one of the things that make this a little bit problematic. Is like, okay, show me all the other instrument data first, explain it to me, then show me the instrument data, tell me what it means to go with this, and you might have something. Otherwise, you just got a black dot on a screen with a bunch of black squares on it.
Yeah, it's a bit like trying to interpret X-rays when you don't really know much about X-rays, isn't it? Because it's presumably a lot of these are sort of like quasi-radar type images.
So that's a helicopter. I mean, the thing is, right, is that, I mean, case in point with X-rays. X-rays now are not analyzed by any one person at all. They're analyzed. You have an X-ray of your leg, you have an X-ray of whatever part of your body you choose. It'll be analyzed by AI. And I can't really see why they can't utilize the same technology with this, but I think even for AI, there's just no information in those photos at all. They are just blobs. That one,
I've got some real issues with this one.
well,
it's a fine line they're walking. It's like, okay, we're going to show them a bunch of stuff that doesn't show them anything. That's a given. But I don't know. I almost feel like the guy rifling through the microfilms would look at this one and say, maybe we better not put this out because it just looks too good.
Didn't you say that had an FBI overlay on it though, Phil? Because that actual ship might have been what the FBI said it looked like, rather like a photoshopped image. So the background image, didn't you say that was legit, but the actual craft was an FBI overlay?
On the definition down here.
So it's fake.
I think so. I think it's basically the real field, but the actual craft itself is the artist representation from what Phil said.
This is as bad as Stephen Greer's evidence database.
Oh, blimey, you're going to get sued.
Oh, that's fighting.
I never said that, people.
Have you been into it? It's a bunch of colored pencil drawings of some crap people said they saw.
I never said that. But
I didn't say you said it.
He's one guy who just loves suing people. He's just like, honestly, you don't have to do very much before. Right, I'm going to sue you.
So this one's
quietly
fake.
agree. I quietly agree. Yeah. Right. Although that was fake, what I just said then. Yeah, it says actual site photo with FBI lab rendered graphic overlay depicting corroborating eyewitness reports from September 2023 of an apparent ellipsoid bronze metallic object materializing out of a bright light in the sky, 130 to 195 feet in length and disappearing instantaneously. And over here it says composite sketch. Now, why I find that one so exciting, which I do, I had a bit of a shake when I saw that one. It's not personally, it's not because it was rendered, it was because it's the first time that even though it's a rendered image, an image of a UFO was on a offered by a government website, offered by the president of the United States as a UFO. So he's basically, kind of that must have gone past him on a table, and they said, Mr. President, render it. But still, it's give it to the people. That was something not ours. That was something which was a unidentified flying object. So it's not so much the actual material, it's the coming forward and saying, right, yeah, there is this, not just blobs, even though it's rendered, there is this in the sky.
But it's fake.
It's basically an artist. You know how they used to do the artist sketches of felons?
Yes, it's the Stephen Greer database.
That's their version based upon, and presumably their corroborating eyewitness accounts were all either agents or military personnel, so it was okay to accept that as an eyewitness statement. So, and then they rendered what they thought it looked like based on what they said. So it is basically like, this is based on the eyewitness accounts, this is what it looked like over the actual field. So, like you say, it's not exactly evidence in a way, is it?
No, it's not evidence in any way.
No, aside from the eyewitness testimonies, which we don't have there evidence. Anyway, it's based on eyewitness testimonies. So.
It's funny. Eyewitness. They put people, to death with eyewitness testimony.
Mm.
They do. They do. But still,
and then 25% of those people are either exonerated or have their convictions overturned or otherwise lessened based on real evidence, like DNA and forensics and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true as well. But I just like the idea that it's the first time that the president has kind of like given a go ahead for that to be released, whether it's rendered or not. It's still representation of a craft which has no ailerons, has no wings, it for all intents and purposes shouldn't be in the sky, shouldn't be there. But he's given a go ahead for it to be released, which kind of like it says, right, okay, there is craft out there which isn't ours, or is ours, but we're not telling you. But so it's kind of like given a green light. He's given the official stamp, and it's out there. So that's the exciting part. It's the first time that sort of like happened, even though they're crap photos, all of them. To be honest, let's face it. They're just not great, any of them. But hey, right. So, Ryan, I'm going to hit you with a side swipe here. What are UFOs in your book? What are UFOs? What are they? What are we talking about?
Well, in my book, I'm sorry to be disappointing, but I don't say what they are or aren't. I do walk through how a few scenarios would be possible in my framework. The most likely thing that I think they are is aliens, from other planets, either piloted by them or, otherwise built and directed by them. But I don't believe that they're craft in the sense that we think of craft. So, it's difficult to understand something that you don't have any basis to understand, right? So, for instance, if I took a like an F-15 to like the 14th century, what would they call it? They'd call it like a wooden bird or something, right? Because they'd have no basis whatsoever to understand the thing. And I think we experience the same thing with UAP, right? Oh, it's a spaceship. Yeah, I don't think it is, because simple reason. What those things do or are reported to do, we've seen things that look a lot like evidence to me, and heard reliable reports from people who seemingly reliable, that they behave in ways that are flatly impossible using our physics. So in other words, if gravity is real for them, like it's real for me, they can't do that. And my belief is there will never be a material invented that gives a physical craft the ability to defy gravity operating within the same reality that we're operating in. So what I think they are essentially reality rule editors. They're space-time rule editors or reality rewriters. And the reason I believe that's possible is because underlying our physical reality is an informational substrate. Information is more fundamental than matter and energy in space-time. Quantum mechanics shows us that. Psychic functioning proves it, in my opinion, and in my framework. So that's what I think they are. This is a civilization or a number of civilizations, more likely. They are well beyond our understanding of the universe. All we really are coming to understand is the physical universe. And that just flatly cannot be all there is, according to the evidence. So that's what I think they are. They are they're not operating by the same rules that we are.
Yeah. No, they're not. Information, yeah, you're quite right. I mean, they always it said that on the event horizon, the only thing that would exist and the only thing that it could exist is information itself, and that information is that which gives the event horizon its light, the information itself, because it harbors everything there is in the universe being sucked into it on that horizon, on that, if you like, the Kármán line. We have a Kármán line in our atmosphere, the line in between space and our gravity. It's about 100 miles up. I think that was about right. Yeah. So it's the same with event horizon. Information is a viable material. I think information and it can be and is a form and take form. It can take form. Information can. Now the question is, does that information need us to manipulate it into a form, or does it form by its own means? That's to say, I'm now sitting in what I call the padded room. Okay, it's actually a bedroom, but my other half's got so many clothes that it deadens the sound. It doesn't reverberate. Now outside of this room, there is, as I know it to be, a hallway leading into a bathroom. But could that hallway and that bathroom at the moment, because I'm not in it, would be a random mass of atoms in a state of possibility until I walk into that hallway and into that bathroom and form those rooms. Is that what you're talking about?
No. Good question, though. It's a great way to ask it too.
Thank you.
You mix it up. You take the other path. I like that.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
But what you're really asking is does existence require a consciousness, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that I find the most, first of all, the people who hate me the most are, well, so far, we'll find out if the Dogman people hate me worse than these other people. But the people that hate me most are the consciousness is primary people, which I kind of find to be hilarious. When I first was putting together this framework and writing this book, I went to a fairly famous scientist who I won't mention in this context. I went to that person and I said, would you look at this framework? And they said, sure, they'll look at it. And so then they came back to me and basically said, and this is a scientist, mind you, but I guess they'd be considered on the fringe side of science, but they said, I like what you're saying. The only problem is consciousness is fundamental. And I said, how? And they explained it to me. Well, delayed choice, there's a certain way to do double slit experiments where the results are not seen until later, basically. And seeing the results later changes the result previously. Now, that is interesting, but they pointed to this as their reasoning why scientifically they think it's proven that consciousness is fundamental. Nothing could exist without it. And I said, did the universe non-exist for 12 billion years before consciousness came along? Or did consciousness cause the mathematics that show us what we believe to be the beginning of the universe? Did consciousness show up on the scene and change the mathematics? Or was consciousness there the whole time? And the mathematics have just been fooled with by consciousness to make it look that way. I never heard from that person again. So take that as you will. But this consciousness is primary thing, the reason that I find that to be hilarious is because it's essentially the argument of religion from 500 years ago. It's like, humanity went in kind of two directions. We went science and some stayed religion, all to kind of come back together, I think is happening in the near future. But you've got these people that left religion, but basically continue with the same ontology that religion had, which is, some kind of intelligence is responsible for it all. But no, I don't think consciousness is primary in any way. I think consciousness is the result of ongoing complexity and self-organizing systems. Which is how biology kind of is the next type of system that self-organizes after other types of self-organizing systems, like solar systems and and whatnot. So no, I don't think you have to be looking at the moon for the moon to exist. Now, I do have in my framework there's a mechanism for this. The universe, the underlying substrate of reality, biases coherence, coherent outcomes. It wants structures and outcomes that persist, cohere and persist. And so that's how we get all the forces that we have, gravity and electromagnetism and the nuclear forces and so on. Because at the beginning of the universe, there were two, one's not a force, so it's kind of difficult to visualize. Science calls it entropy now. But there was nothing, and then there was coherence bias. And so material and energy and space-time and all that followed this one rule, which is do the thing that will get us the structure that lasts the longest, essentially. And so because of that coherence bias, one subatomic particle requires another subatomic particle to cohere, right? So the fact that the moon is made up of these same essentially quantum behaviors of the field that everything else is, it does not require eyeballs or a brain directed at it for that coherence requirement to exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, does make sense. It does make sense.
It doesn't need me to look at it to exist. It exists because coherence demands it.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, coherence from the point of view of it will have an effective state with another relative particle.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Now a consciousness can do that too, right?
Yeah, but then we're on the whole zeitgeist of what we're talking about at the moment is the consciousness, unless it's the old thing of if a tree falls in the wood and no one's there, will it make a sound? We have to witness that moon for it to be recognized as the moon. Otherwise, it's just going to be not there because we consciously wouldn't see it. So if we didn't see it, it wouldn't be there. If the UFOs, we didn't see any UFOs, they wouldn't be there because we wouldn't. Edward B. Titchener, images, sensations, and relative states. That was his take on consciousness, which all do kind of like play a big part. But my thing would be, okay, so back to the question, if the moon existed and all the other bits and pieces of the world existed and we weren't conscious of them, what would be the point of them existing if they weren't being witnessed? Why would they have a relative state to one another if there was nobody there to witness them, to play with them, to touch them, to have sensation with them, to take images with your eye of those things? What would be the point of them existing? What would form them? Why would they be formed, and what would form them?
Coherence bias. So for instance, let's just take our neighborhood here. The solar system. That's our guy, Sol, right in the middle. There's been life. I mean, this is a somewhat arguable point, but I think the data supports it. There's been life on Earth for about 3 of the 4.5 billion years that it has been formed. Eyes came along about 500 million years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what we would call eyes. So photosensitivity of any kind, probably pushing more towards 1 billion years. So was there no moon before that? Because if there was no moon before that, we would have had no tides. And with no tides, evolution would have been a completely different outcome, right? So I don't buy into the Donald Hoffman, all due respect to Dr. Hoffman. I don't begrudge scholars, their opinions, but and certainly most of them do important work and they arrive at the conclusions that they can. But the conclusion that I arrive at, to be frank, could not have ever been arrived at before about 30 years ago. Because before then, information theory only began in 1948, 1949. Prior to that, information meant things that are true and stuff in newspapers, right? There was no electron field, and frankly, we thought electrons travel through wires until 35 years ago. So we didn't understand information well enough for anybody to arrive at the conclusion that I have before pretty recently. And so the way that I see it is a lot of the people who arrive at conclusions like Donald Hoffman has, they're arriving at that conclusion from, like their home base is 35 years ago. 35 years ago, yes, you needed something else. You needed, an ether or a consciousness field or something like that in order to make all of it work. Well, information makes all of it work, and it makes all of it work with far fewer assumptions. So like essentially what you're talking about is a type of simulation theory, that nothing is real until the gamer's headset is pointed in that direction, kind of, right? Well, the problem with that is that assumes, and I'll give it this, simulation theory has among the fewest assumptions of all the explanations for physical reality, but it still has at least five assumptions. Information first, which is my framework, has one assumption, that information is more fundamental than matter, and all of the things, all of the things in the universe are actually just, they're an instantiation, or what you might call the stable material version of the information, if that makes sense. Similar to how, water can be ice or vapor or liquid. So too, a thing can be material and it can be informational. And quantum mechanics shows us that. But when I first started this journey, or whatever you want to call it, I actually wrestled with that quite a bit. What is consciousness's role in all this? And, it says it right in the title of the book, The Purpose of Consciousness. The purpose of consciousness is that a coherence biased substrate put the universe on a trajectory that was frankly always going to go the way that it has. And the way that it has is eventually this tendency toward complexity. We arrive at more and more complex living things. And more complex living things develop more and more complex processes that we call consciousness. But what that allows us to do, ultimately, is we do shape reality with our consciousness. So, right now you've got that mouse hovering over the button, and you're like, do I hang up on him and get him out of here, or do I let him keep going? Right. What you're doing there is you're evaluating. I know.
You can read my mind.
Well, I'm a remote viewer. You're evaluating against the coherence bias of the substrate.
Yeah.
What's the more coherent outcome here? You are an agent of this thing, right? And I am, and she is, and everybody watching. You're agents. You are agentic substrate coherence calculators and modifiers and improvers. And you can plan, and you can strategize, and you can model. And all of those things change reality. Whether or not you push that button changes reality, right? Rocks don't really do that.
Right. So my thing, I get what you're saying. I understand it. Now, why then is information itself, which is a construct, yeah, which constructs the world around us, basically, I believe, is that vulnerable to the second law of thermodynamics, entropy? Is the information itself, from its birth to, is it liable to degrade, or is it self-healing? Does it just keep going?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, if you look at what many people that I consider to be on the cutting edge of physics today are saying, like Eric Berlin, he says, you know, entropy is an informational process in itself, right? But I don't. So the second law of thermodynamics says, in a closed system, you know, things will tend toward disorder, is kind of how I think most people understand it. And fair enough, but there is no such thing as a closed system. You know, unless you want to count the whole universe as the system. But even then, there are anti-entropy forces at work. There are giant coherence bias nodes at the center of every galaxy, sucking all the information toward themselves, if you want to get crazy. Entropy is just the absence of the coherence bias. So you mentioned event horizon earlier, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of look at all things this way. There is an event horizon for every single outcome, where one outcome will no longer be favored versus the other. And entropy, whatever you apply it to, is simply that scenario playing out for whatever we're talking about. So, but it's informational. Some physicists, some mathematicians will tell you entropy is just a statistical trick to explain, you know, like the opposite of gravity kind of thing. But I guess what I'm saying is the second law of thermodynamics applies to material. I think that's clear.
So if it applies to material, it must apply to information.
Information in my framework is not necessarily the way that we're treating it when we talk about thermodynamics. So if you look at like the particle behavior of a, you know, double slit experiment or whatever. Sorry, my phone's misbehaving. If you look at the particle behavior, you know, we shoot the proton through the two slits, and we find that on the other side, you know, it shows us whatever 30,000 plus little dots. Shows us that some way it went through both slits, just about every way that it could, based on its starting position. Okay, so what that means is that the informational substrate does not allow behavior, you know, of that particle that doesn't fit within that matrix of probabilities.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no particle, right? What we call a particle is the behavior of that field, which I believe is the informational substrate. It's the behavior of that field when coherence metrics, create a number of scenarios, and its job is to choose the most coherent one, if that makes any sense. But I kind of lost my train of thought. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I can whack you back on a train of thought, and that is
Okay.
With and let's really annoy some of the cryptid folk out there.
Okay.
People see cryptids. People see Dogman, and they see Bigfoot, and they see. Let's really go for the big one. And they also see UFOs and aliens. Okay, we're gonna have a lot of people who are gonna hate you. Let's get the whole lot, eh? So, how would you interpret the sightings of those entities which are not normal in your framework of information? Why would your information framework have formed the alien craft, the alien standing there as a grey, or the Dogman with claws and teeth, or the Bigfoot? What is the genesis moment of that information to form those for people to see?
I do not, nowhere in my framework or my book, this book anyway, nowhere let me make sure I'm right about this. I don't believe any cryptozoological examples as such exist in this book. So one of the, a number of the things that I do think Information First explains pretty easily is, first of all, UAP. Second of all is religious experience, what you'd call visions and things like that. Things that we see reported and believed and discussed throughout history of humanity. The issue that I have with so-called cryptids is evidentiary. If there was more and better evidence for them, I probably would have given them some more attention in the book. But the issue that I have is evidentiary. So UAP, I think just like UAP, probably 95%, something like that. Pick a round number, 90% of reports of UAP are people getting excited about something perfectly explainable, right? My guess would be that metric is also true of Bigfoot and Jersey Devil, Chupacabra, my personal favorite. Now I've also never seen a UFO. I have seen things in the sky a couple of times and I do not know what they were. They were unusual looking, but could be any number of things. Me not knowing what it is doesn't make it aliens, right? And so that would be my guess also about cryptids, is it's probably 90, give or take, 90% of those sightings are people doing what they do, which is, you want an example?
Yeah, please.
All right. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to show you how you will do this, whether you mean to or not. Okay.
Is it legal?
It's legal. Yes. We can tie this into remote viewing later. It's
okay.
Got a lot of similarities. So I'm going to say a bunch of.
I want to ask you about remote viewing anyway, because I want to give it a go.
you do not have to fight me to get me to talk about remote viewing, just so you know.
Oh, brilliant.
It's going to go a lot easier than talking about Bigfoot. But I'm going to give you a number of descriptors, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let you know when I'm done. Red, shiny, small, smooth, smells biological. What is it?
Penis.
Interesting. Interesting. I usually get apple or cherry or tomato. But
Penis.
there's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer because it's a thought experiment. There is no.
Well, that's what came into my head.
There is no tomato penis.
Not yet, anyway.
You know,
It was
insofar as we're discussing it.
It was the small and red that done it.
Yeah, no.
Your brain took the information that was available and did what it's supposed to do, which is make sense of it. It is a coherence calculator, right? So the same thing happens when you see things for which you do not have explanations, which is why in the 14th century they would have called it a wooden bird, giant wooden bird. It's the reason that, in your backyard 300 years ago, they called probably they called gray aliens the Fae or whatever. Because we can't call it something that we're not familiar with. What's the biggest city in America? New York. That's how amazing human beings are at naming things. New York. It's the new one. It's just like the old one. So that's just an example of what a human being does. Now it doesn't make that person bad or full of crap or anything like that. It doesn't have to be that. All it has to be is they're trying to take the data available to them and understand it in a way that is understandable. And typically when it's something for which you don't have a good empirical, a pile of evidence to say what it is, a lot of times you default to these other explanations, right? So that said, I also don't think that it's impossible. If the universe is in fact not fundamentally material, that means that the distance between here and Sirius or Zeta Reticuli, it isn't fundamentally the thing that we see it as in the material universe, right? So the reason that a UAP can go from 500 feet above sea level to 50,000 feet above sea level in a fraction of a second is because space and time, it's not subject to the rules of space and time. It's operating at the informational level. It's moving itself informationally, not physically. Well, 50,000 feet is no different than 22 light years, right? So if that can be done with a craft, as far as I can see, but that doesn't mean that that's the only way that it can be done. In fact, what I say about the UAP is that the reason that people draw this conclusion that there must be something to do with consciousness with the UAP issue is because there is. Consciousness, in fact, is the only thing we know of that has access to this substrate in the first place. And through remote viewing and various other psi phenomena, we can empirically show that the rules of space-time can be rendered a non-issue. You can give me a tasking, if I'm having a good day, you can give me a tasking number, I can write it down, and I can describe what is happening, whatever, on one of Saturn's moons, right? Feedback would be a problem here, but let's say we had it. I would be able to describe that to you, the event or the object or whatever. And I would be doing that faster than a photon can get here from there. And a photon's the fastest thing we know in the material universe that can carry information physically. So just by virtue of the fact that I can do that, I'm showing that these rules are not hard and fast as we understand them, right? There are things that get around them. Consciousness is the only thing that I've ever encountered or seen or have evidence for that gets around it. So if my consciousness can tell you what's happening on Saturn's moon, and the species from Zeta Reticuli, their consciousness can, by use of technology, by use of their craft, can get them from there to here in no time, and from here to the stratosphere in no time, then who's to say that there aren't beings in the universe somewhere who have the ability to do that innately? Why not?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm just gonna I agree. You put it really quite succinctly. There's a lot of, pardon the pun, information there to take in. There is. Yeah, I mean, every age, and we're quite sort of narcissistic in our thinking that we are the top of the tree kind of entities, people, humans on
Well, we're on our way. We're on our way. We're making a go of it.
We're pretty crap, really. We're not that great. Let's face it. I mean, we're doing a better job of destroying everything than we are of building and creating. Let's face it, Ryan.
We have a ways to go.
Ways, yeah, if we ever get there. But no, we're and we do judge that which we see around us by the technology we have at the time, or the accessibility of information that is available to us at the time. 100, 200 years ago, you take a F-35A or F-17 fighter back 200 years ago, and yeah, they would equate it to a big bird, a Thunderbird.
Well, 200 years ago, they'd call it a balloon. They'd call it it's a hard balloon.
Yeah, that's what they used to call UAPs, isn't it? They like kind of and it's funny because they were taking what we would call a tic tac and calling it an airship, a blimp, because that's what they were used to seeing in the sky. So of course they equate it to that. We can't equate it to anything else because we haven't moved on. We're stuck in this frame, this time frame. We can't see the beginning of the film, we can't see the end of the film. We're just chugging along on this frame, and we can't quite see past that frame. So we're as much captive as they are years ago to a lot of things which are going on around us, which we can't explain because we have nothing to equate it to as a reference point, which is a pity, a damn pity. But I'm sure that as things, it's like technology, we can only analyze with the equipment we have to analyze with. So and you're quite right, photon's the fastest thing. The only faster thing than a photon is a tachyon, which carries that light photon. Tachyons are extremely, they're like neutrinos, and they're trying at the moment Antarctica with the neutrino detector buried in ice to try and get hold of the relic neutrino, which happened a couple of minutes, I think, past the Big Bang, trying to see, because that would give us an insight as to a few minutes after the Big Bang, what actually happened, what was the state of the compressed universe at that point.
I think they'll be waiting a while for that.
Well, no, maybe not. I mean, with your remote viewing, what has been the most tricky thing you've had to remote view, from the point of view of, if I was to ask you to remote view the earliest point of the universe, would you be able to do that, or would you need something more specific to go on? a place to go.
Well, theoretically, a remote viewer would be able to do that, but the results would be probably pretty problematic. So actually, Deborah Katz, who was the editor of Aperture magazine, that's the International Remote Viewing Association magazine, she was the editor of the magazine before I took over. And one of the things she did, I want to say it was about 10 years ago, might have been longer than that though, is she kind of pioneered remote viewing microscopic things like organisms and what have you. But that was more of a, most of the exploration that's been done in remote viewing has been more about understanding it, not necessarily about showing what it could be used for. But she had success with remote viewers, remote viewing microscopic organisms. The problem is that the remote viewer has no idea what they're looking at, right? As a remote viewer, you're blind to the target. So and this is going to come back to the cherry genitals or tomato genitals or whatever that we just talked about. I'm not a bacteriologist, right? So if you had me remote view the contents of a petri dish, yeah, I would give you accurate descriptions of what my perceptions are, but I wouldn't know what they mean because and in remote viewing, at least in the early stages of remote viewing, your perception doesn't necessarily have a fixed position or a size. So you wouldn't know that. So if you test me with whatever the second after the Big Bang or something, I wouldn't have a good frame of reference. I wouldn't be able to tell you, early on anyway, what the size of anything is or the position. We kind of have an innate understanding of what down is on Earth, but in an environment where gravity doesn't exist, I mean, it would be problematic. Let's put it that way. And without feedback, you would never know if what I described was accurate or not. You could compare it to, maybe what some formulas say from folks studying this kind of thing. But there would never be a way for you to know that a remote viewer told you what the beginning of the universe was. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does.
It would be the same as the Saturn's moon. Like, yes, theoretically, I can describe it faster than a photon can get here. And I suppose you could come up with an experiment that proves that with a photon over a shorter distance than that. But the problem is that it's theoretical, because without any feedback, then the remote viewer or the person tasking the remote viewer would never know if it was accurate or not. Remote viewing is not, a magic wand, and whatever the remote viewer says they remote viewed is the truth. It's completely exactly the opposite of that. And I hope I don't talk out of turn and irritate any of my fellow remote viewers, but if you say that you remote viewed it and you don't have any feedback, and you're presenting that as unequivocal fact, then shame on you. You shouldn't be doing that, because remote viewing it requires the ability for somebody to determine if the information had a basis in fact.
Okay, right.
Do you think then if information exists and creates coherence, and you were remote viewing, and your ability to interface with information is via consciousness, do you think it's possible that you can't go back far enough before consciousness became a thing for interfacing with the information with? Does that make sense?
It does. It's a good question. My assumption or guess about that would be that my consciousness, here's what I believe. My consciousness has access. My consciousness gives me the ability to tune my perceptive abilities to informational structures that exist outside of my physical position or even my physical reality. So I have a form of access to all information that has ever existed, exists now, or could ever exist. The question is how useful is that, right? If I can remote view the beginning of the universe, but my knowledge and understanding doesn't allow me to turn that data into anything useful to you, and I can remote view the end of the universe, but I have that same limitation, then, how does that improve our position on trying to answer those questions? So I'll give you a for instance, that's related to remote viewing. Matter of fact, I just got a session back, which I can't show you the session because it belongs to somebody else. But what I can do is give you examples. So when I'm remote viewing, for instance, this is a target that was, it was a building, basically a building that has a use. And I can even tell you what the use is. It's a lighthouse. But it's not really a lighthouse like keep the boats away from the shore anymore lighthouse. It's a lighthouse like a historic, like a museum, right? And so as these impressions are coming, hard, edgy, large, blocky, wide, towering, sunny, and when we checked this session data, it was considered to be real time, and we checked the temperature, we checked the weather report at the location, all that stuff. So, but again, because I need to know whether I'm right. Angly, sharp, reflective. Get to the good ones. So then over here, my mind starts doing what your mind did when I said red and smooth and small and so on, is I wrote down like Las Vegas, right? That's the impression. That's what the impressions were reminding me of, was an area like Las Vegas. And then I had another one, sandstone. Then I had another one, office building. But that data comes through me. It doesn't come to me, if that makes sense. So the most sense it will ever make is the best sense I can make of it. Does that paint a good picture? Does that help you understand? So like, just like the red, the smooth, the smells organic, you can't, and that's why it's so important in remote viewing to do as little evaluation of the data as you can. But imagine trying to describe a color that you are unfamiliar with, right? You would, if it's whatever, like peach, you'd be like, well, it's kind of like orange, it's kind of like pink, but not either of those, right? So that's it's not just remote viewing, it's our problem really as humans, as conscious beings. We understand things. Our circle of understanding expands slowly, systematically. It takes time. Just like look at how quickly our language evolves. All things considered, our language evolves slowly because our lexicon of understanding, it grows more and more all the time. It's it's exponential growth, but it's incremental, right?
Yeah, there was a scholar that I was listening to a while back on a podcast that said that the amount of words in your language limits or expands the amount of conceptual thinking that you can do. So it's like he was at that time he was comparing Greek with, I think it was Hebrew, because he, if I remember rightly, correct me if I'm wrong, Hebrew's got something like 30,000 words and Greek had like exponentially more. And he said that's why at the time the Greek sort of methods of thought, even looking back at it today, we struggle to understand what they're speaking about, because they're so many words, so many nuances, and they're able to sort of think in concepts that we couldn't, because like you say, we don't have the language to understand it. So some of it is about, like you say, developing the language, and also like you say, not filtering the impressions that you get. Is very similar to what what I did when I was doing my healing course with the horses. We were told, don't censor the impressions you're getting, even if they don't make sense to you. And like you say, it sounds very familiar in remote viewing. It's important to not try and make sense of it to start off with, and then not censor the what you're getting, because otherwise, like you say, your brain starts putting it into a patterns and boxes, going, oh, it's mostly this, so it's got to be that, rather than like you say, you could then have got fixated on the idea of Las Vegas, and then your brain goes down that channel and starts looking for things like Las Vegas, rather than seeing, you know, like you say, getting the other impressions that then sort of narrow it down into a different direction. So but yeah,
and it's impossible to do. You know, that's what remote viewing is. It's the process of doing your best, using tools to keep that from happening. But it's you can't turn off the part of your brain that identifies things. The reason that you're here is because your ancestors identified things just good enough to not get eaten. Right?
Yeah, pattern recognition.
It's selected for. The identifying brain is definitely selected for. But yeah, matter of fact, I would love to hear what it is that you were talking. I think I read somewhere that you're to do with animals.
Me, I'm a horse person, but I've like you say, gone from the 3D to interacting with them more as more and more conscious beings, and then as more and more spiritual beings, and then as more and more, and then I found an infinite level of depth to them. So I don't ever look at a horse anymore. It's they're a combined level of layers and fields over, within, around, and even in the body. When I was learning the healing, it's like I started again with massage, crystal therapy, hands-on, blah 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 blah, and then you sort of find that you can interact with the body as a separate entity to the consciousness, and the body itself has a consciousness, and then you can link the consciousness with the body's consciousness and the information, and you get the feedback loops and sensations and between sort of physical structures and other things, like say sense impressions, that you don't censor them and try and interpret them. I got taught, I find it difficult because I'm a very analytical person, so it's really hard for me not to try, like you say, not to try and interpret, but not to question what the body's sort of giving to you in relation. So you think you've got your hands on, say, like the diaphragm, but you could also be accessing fear, emotion, but also a spiritual element or the dimensional elements. And it's like, your point is not to necessarily do anything about it, but to observe and acknowledge, and then see what happens as a result of that. So I don't know if that's sort of a bit random, but
no, what you're saying makes sense. So where I come in and spoil the fun, right? And in fact, my first remote viewing teacher also teaches something called I wouldn't necessarily call it remote healing. I think she steers away from that, but she does teach something called medical remote viewing, where you're essentially trying to remote diagnose. You're trying to get impressions, right, about, what are the circumstances and causes around, like a certain medical condition or malfunction or something. And similar thing, you don't need to be a cardiologist to get the impressions. And in fact, if you're a good remote viewer, you'll be able to provide impressions that will be able to be made sense of by somebody with, training in cardiology. But there are also people who do essentially what I would call remote healing. The problem is that most of them call it energy healing. And that's where it falls apart for me. Another remote viewing teacher that I have, we had lunch with a number of people who were also his students. And it's Paul Smith. He won't get mad at me for saying this. So we're having lunch, and Ryan pipes up. He just can't take it anymore. He's all charged up on energy healing being the wrong word. And one of the, my friend is there, and this is what she does. Like, this is what she does for, like, with her life for a living. She heals people in this way. And she's, calls it energy healing. I said, why do you call it that? Well, because I use energy. No, you don't. You don't, because energy can't exist without mass, right? And everybody rolls their eyes. Oh, there Ryan goes. Oh, he's at it again. But here's why I think it's important, because I don't think there's a lot of steps between energy healing and the Holy Spirit, right? Now we can talk another time about whether the metaphor of the Holy Spirit, does or does not closely match something real. But energy healing, that's just pop buzzword, right?
Mm.
That is placeholder word for thing that we don't understand. And I say, well, hold on.
Convenience, isn't it? Really, it's
same with consciousness. It's the same with consciousness. Oh, there's a conscious field, and everything's conscious, and your cheese spread's made out of consciousness. Well, what I hope I've done, and time will tell if I have or not. I think I'm right. Time will tell if anybody else agrees. But we're using the wrong word, right? We're using old, worn-out metaphors that don't work. So what I encourage you to do is just try this on for size and see if it works for you.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Yeah.
Try information instead, right?
Yeah, no. No, it does make sense to me. I quite like the idea of, like, the information being there, the consciousness as an interface, rather than the thing itself. Because it's like with ill health in horses, I've always felt that, like you say, it was a difference between coherence and entropy, and the body's losing coherence, and that's what causes dysfunction. And usually it's a case of trying to find what level the dysfunction's on in order to find what intervention is needed. And sometimes, like you say, it's not actually a physical intervention. Sometimes it is literally just attention, and the thing melts. And it's like, which is why the focus tends to be on consciousness, really. But if you think about the ground as information itself, do you think of information then more as like, because from what you're saying, I'm assuming that you think of information more as a dynamic thing than a static thing, because without the dynamic principle, it can't create coherence, because if it's not moving, it can't create movement, if that makes sense, in order to create coherence. I was going to ask you whether that because the quantum energy field is supposed to be constantly dynamic, isn't it? And then eventually form, and then if it's stable enough, that form then creates into reality, well, what we class as reality, but three-dimensional form. So to you, is information a dynamic principle, or both?
I think so. I think the informational substrate is just what it shows us when we try to examine particle behavior, right? It doesn't exist in the way that we think of things existing, right? And if you think that, I just want to share this with you. This is what most physicists who study quantum effects, I think most of them don't do a great job of admitting this to everybody right up front. Everything I'm explaining is how I understand it, which is through metaphor. This is it's not unique to me. This is what we do. New York, wood, bird, courthouse in Las Vegas, right? None of those things are real. They're just the metaphors that we use to understand. And so information first is, I think, a newer, better metaphor to understand the thing, taking into consideration how our lexicon of understanding has improved, right? So yes, 50 or 100 years ago, field was a good metaphor that encompassed our understanding up to that point, and now it isn't, because we understand enough that we see that it really isn't a field per se. So, but the way that I understand it is the same way a quantum physicist understands the things that he cannot see and understand, like fields and particles, or the way that, whatever a 14th century villager, when he looked up at the sky and saw something that he didn't understand, he did the same thing. So I don't think it exists. That's my best metaphor, is it doesn't exist. It underlies what does exist. It is the matrix of possible configurations that underlies physical reality, just like what we call the field or the wave in quantum mechanics is the matrix of possibilities or probabilities beneath that particle, what we call a particle. I think it works the same way. So, for instance, like I've done this before too. His great job trophy and this pen are a distance apart from one another, right? What is that distance made out of? Nothing. The distance itself is an informational concept. Now, I didn't say what is between them. You could say air, you could say whatever, space-time. I said, what is the distance made out of? Nothing, but it is real, right? So I accept that what I'm proposing, just like quantum mechanics, is well outside the, colloquial abilities of a brain to understand. Hopefully that answers your question. But you access the substrate. I access the substrate to remote view. You access the substrate to remote diagnose, for instance, an animal. We know there's loads of data that says that's real. That is something that can be done. It probably hasn't been studied to the extent that it should be, but it's been studied enough to show statistical effects. And so I don't think that, to me, that's just another hash mark under, yes, when you can access that, we can't only access that substrate. We have an influence over it, or maybe influence is the wrong word. We have a communicative, participatory ability, use or work with, or whatever you want to say, which is actually no different than medicine in the first place. No medicine does anything but allow the body to heal itself, because only the body can heal the body, right?
Yeah, no, that's true.
Sorry, I went off in the weeds there. I do that.
No, that's all right. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think I understand what you mean by information. Because obviously you're using in a different context. So when you think information, your brain automatically just thinks numbers, symbols,
right,
things like that. So I'm trying to think of it like, to me, it makes more sense to think of it towards the quantum fields end of things, even though, because that's to me more about possibilities, probabilities, and coherence. But obviously I appreciate the fact that you believe that field is a wrong word to use. So I've got to try and connect that into the next level of the concept. But I
don't even know that I'd say wrong. I wouldn't say field is wrong. I just don't think it is
accurate,
as complete as I don't think it's as complete as what our current understanding, if we really look at everything we do understand, which is a problem, is that the physicist looks at what physics understands, and the biologist looks at what biology understands, and the priest looks at what Catholicism understands, and it's nobody's job to put them all together and say, well, what's our current level of understanding? So, but I wouldn't say field is wrong. Energy is wrong. I don't think I'm out on a limb saying that. It's not. It's not energy. But yeah, we're using metaphors anyway. So how many fingers am I holding up?
5 technically.
Well, 5 is a metaphor. 5 is a metaphor.
Right.
For one thing,
another thing.
And again and again and again and again. Our brains, in fact, force us to create a metaphor. Because once we get more than about this many, we start losing the conceptual ability to understand what we're looking at. And so we have to then reduce it again. Oh, it's a dozen. That's 100.
Yeah.
It's 1,000,000. We have to take the incomprehensible and reduce it to the very comprehensible.
Yeah.
Now, you could call it a limitation or you could call it a superpower. It's both. But that's just, we're meaning-seeking pattern recognizers with very limited processing bandwidth.
Yeah, we have to reduce it to that smaller concept because we have to communicate it to other people as well. So I suppose it makes it difficult to go, a bit like with the hippies, on the drug tip going, it's all this and it's that and it's this, and you have to kind of sort of make it into a coherent thing in order to be able to convey it to other people as well, instead of being able to pass on a sense impression and go, actually, it's this. We have to make it abstract because of the way we communicate as well to a degree. So I suppose
the communication itself is a metaphor. The written language is I'm going to say, okay, this represents that. It's all it's all a metaphor. Yeah. And so I just came up with a new one. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. No, I have heard something similar. The metaphor principle in some of the spiritual writings that I've had. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it is, about everything being sort of it's I think it was Taoism actually, or the Tao Te Ching, isn't it? The thing that can be described is the Tao that can be described is not the Tao, and it's like, so it's sort of like in order to describe it, you then stop it being what it is, but it is still that at the same time. But the words you use to describe it are what you're using to help other people to understand what it is that can't be described. So
in the beginning, there was the word.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
The Vedic tradition calls it a sound, Om. That's from which all things spring, and Taoism calls it the Tao, and gives us these amazing metaphors like the yin and the yang. All of these are doing, my framework and my book talks about these different faith traditions and what they're also telling us. No, they're not telling us that that Yahweh exists and is sat down at the potter's wheel and threw it all together in a half a fortnight, with fairy dust. No, that part isn't actually the important part anyway. I have more to say on that, but what it does say is and all of these traditions do the same thing. These are from a time when there was no science, there was no empiricism, there was, understanding just worked completely different than it does now. And you can imagine in Asia, somewhere on the Asian continent, many thousands of years ago. And when these things got written down, it's not when they came about. They got written down a lot later. But if you can imagine looking inward for the source, looking inward would have been a more reliable source of where did we come from, especially if there's an informational substrate to which we all have a level of access. Looking inward, with a quiet prefrontal cortex, would have given you the metaphors, right? And so I think what we actually find when we dig into all of those religious traditions is that fundamentally the metaphor that they present is one that is true enough for what the mind of the viewer could make sense of at the time, right? Same thing. And it's just unfortunate that we've kind of gotten to a point where the empiricism that we're capable of has led to this like militant, strictly enforced ignorance out of a lot of these religious traditions. It's like, listen, if everybody would just shut up about the stuff that makes no difference. And let's start with only what we agree on. What does science agree on with these faiths? What do these faiths agree on with each other? If we started from that, we would find that basically, fundamentally, there's very little disagreement.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I can't argue with you on that point. No. Phil?
Yeah.
Listen, you have you know why I'm here, Phil? I'm here to find out. Now, last night I fell asleep listening to your show.
That often happens.
I had listened to like one episode. I listened to 15 or 20 minutes. And then I was like, oh, I'll do this later. And then last night I was like, oh crap. I'm definitely not prepared for this. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen. And here's what I heard referred to. I think it was either type 2 or level 2 Dogman. And I told social media, I'm going to find out today. What is it type 2 or level 2?
Type 2.
What is a type 2 Dogman? In what way is it different than what I assume must be a type 1 Dogman? And how many types are there?
There's 3 types. Type 1 is a quadrupedal large black dog, often referred to as old Shooker, the hateful one. A lot of times in England, it's seen on the East Coast. It has red eyes, black short fur. It's smaller, a little smaller than a cow. And
so enormous.
It's quite sizable.
Okay.
Sometimes it's called old Padfoot, because people walking up a street will see it, but they won't. They will hear it, but they won't see it. Sorry, they'll hear it, the padding, but they won't see it. But they can sense it's there. A lot of people don't often see it, and it's a doom bringer. If people see it, then they inevitably suffer being unalived. That's a type 1. Type 2 is often mistaken as a Bigfoot. It is a Dogman, technically. It runs quadrupedal, but it stands up, if you like a meerkat, to look around its surroundings. But it's very big, it's broad, very wide-shouldered, flat-faced, quite ugly. Doesn't look like a dog's face at all. Has green, yellowy eyes, stands relatively tall, around about 8 to 9 foot again, but it's very thick, heavy set. And a type 3 is a Dogman, which is more of a super soldier type, with a chiseled triangle type upper body, smaller waist, massive big muscular legs, digit grade in structure. That means they're like they've got a hook to them, like a dog's legs. They use that for instantaneous acceleration, and they are bipedal. Majority of the time, they're bipedal creatures with a long muzzle. They also have yellow to red eyes, sometimes green. But they instill a feeling of fear within the witness. But a type 2 is really quite docile, the more Bigfoot type. Yeah, so it is you're not the first one to fall asleep, Ryan. You really aren't.
No, I did it on purpose.
I granted, I don't blame you at all. I don't blame you at all. I got a question for you, because I'm gonna hit that ping pong ball right back at you. So, as a person that is able to view from a great distance, and a short distance. You gather data points, is that right? Basically,
Yep.
on what you're viewing. So, if you and I'm not sure if you have, but the CIA run Stargate project. Have you ever done any work for them? And have you ever is it up to you to interpret those data points, or is it up to the client to interpret the data points? Because I asked this because you could equate it to going to a medium in a big hall, a spiritualist medium. And a lot of times with a spiritualist medium, they'll be up on stage and they'll shout out, "Is there anyone in the audience that knows Ryan? Does anyone know Ryan? Big house, White House. Is there anybody in the audience? Dave, does anyone? I'm getting a Dave come through. Is anyone Dave?" There will be somebody. There will be somebody
Right.
with that data point which will recognize it. So what I'm trying to get at is, does and I'm not making fun of it. What I am trying to get at is the accuracy of your data points that you get in your remote viewing. Is it interpreted by you, which would be more accurate to me if you came to me and said, "Oh, Phil, you asked me to remote view," and I have interpreted that to be your car, a specific color, a specific type, and a specific model? Or would you give those data points to me and say, "Well, Phil, I saw a red and it was on wheels,"
Right.
and then leave it up to me to interpret?
Yeah. The answer is depends, right? It depends on what the purpose is. So typically in controlled remote viewing, that's the methodology that I have training in. It's a specific set of protocols, right? It's designed to achieve a number of things. But one of the things it's designed to achieve is preventing the imagination from running the thing, right? Like when I was describing the thing that's round and red and, you know, smelling organic and shiny and small, your analytical mind was using what we call your imagination, and it actually showed you in your, however it works, in your mind's eye, as we call it. It showed you, you created it, right? Just like when I say, don't think of a pink elephant. Boom, there it is. Almost just like seeing it, but it's happening inside your mind. That's problematic to psychic functioning for most people. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't mediums or you know, very gifted people with deep substrate level access who somehow in their mind know the difference between imagined or crafted and obtained data. But most of us do not. In fact, it's why most of us walk around thinking we're not psychic in any way, when the truth of the matter is all of us are, just to varying degrees of sense making of the data, right? So, but what you're asking is it, you know, is there a hard and fast rule about who's in charge or who's supposed to evaluate the data? No, not really. But in controlled remote viewing, the remote viewer is meant to be blind to the target, right? So, for instance, if I do a session, I go through a number of stages. It's a process. At the end of some of those stages, I write a summary of the data. And even so, sometimes that summary does start to name things, but you just have to be careful about how you do it in the type of remote viewing that I do, which is, you know, I get the impression that this location has a large structure that goes all the way around it. I get the feeling it's a wall, right? Because I don't know that it's a wall. Perhaps it's a stadium, and what I'm perceiving is it. You know, I'm perceiving a wall, or my brain is putting it together as a wall, but it's in fact just it's the structure itself. Right? So, does that make sense? But
yeah,
I'm
do you ever
saying that
perceive?
there are people who can tell you, yes, it's a red car. I'm sure
do you
that
ever,
those people exist.
Ryan? Do you ever perceive signs? do you ever perceive like on that wall that you were viewing? Do you ever see "Don't park here" or you know maybe entrance, or this building belongs to Stargate project? You know, do you ever see signs? Is there anything specific sometimes?
Oh yeah, you asked that question too. Have I ever worked for the CIA?
Yeah,
Not that I'm aware of. So the CIA, actually, if you go to IRVA.org, IRVA.org, they have the whole history of the government's remote viewing program there. One of my teachers, Paul Smith, was in Project Stargate. He was one of the Army's remote viewers. He was the third one, in fact. And the type of remote viewing that I study and have training in comes from that program. That's how it came about. Is those people went out into the world after their military careers were over. After a time, it became declassified. The CIA kind of had to declassify it to kind of self-debunk it, call it junk, push it to the side, and not be embarrassed anymore. Nobody, it is not officially recognized as something that is still going on. But there's a lot of reports out there from people who say, yeah, they never quit doing it. There's reports out there that say the CIA program was just one of many types of programs like this that have existed all different levels and all different 3-letter organizations. And my guess would be that somewhere in the middle of all that is the truth. But I personally have never, that I know of, done any work on behalf of the government. And frankly, they could find a lot of people a lot better at it than me if they really needed to know.
It's getting quite what's the word, popular? I don't know. It's getting now with psionics, with the aliens. So Natalie and myself, for instance, went with a CE5 group only just last week, and well, actually the week before. But and
what happened?
Well, that's the thing. You see, it was a bit. I'll tell you what, Ryan, you'll laugh at this. Honestly, you'll. So everyone sort of like sat around, a small group, and we were in close to our campsite, but we were in a clearing in the forest. Okay, we sat on our deck chairs, and we then it was there was some Sanskrit puja played. Okay, so a prayer, if you like, and it was narrated by somebody you mentioned earlier that I said would probably sue you. Or one of them. There's a queue probably by now after this program goes out. But
was that person present, or was it a recording via the app? The app that you can download for $9.99 from iTunes.
I mean, hopefully he might buy a book out of it, but his initials are S and G.
Okay.
Yeah, and anyway,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to be on the record here. I actually think that he has done a lot for. I look at him the same way I look at Graham Hancock, right? Yes, they have achieved something very important. They just did it by being to a great deal full of crap. But that doesn't negate the contributions, right? If Steve Greer had not done what he has done, then it wouldn't, it maybe wouldn't have gotten to the point now where other serious people can do similar things. Same with Graham Hancock. No, there's not a lost civilization in the way that he envisions it, but he does invite people to look again and think deeper. And I think that's extremely important.
I agree with you. Actually, I do agree with you, Ryan. And I'm going to grow a pair, and I'm going to stand in that dock with you, mate, because I do think with Stephen Greer, I'm not a great fan. I think if the amount of times where he wrongly predicted the arrival of aliens, he wrongly predicted the end of the world. He wrongly predicted. I've forgotten how many times he's predicted that there's going to be disclosure, and it just didn't happen. I think a lot of it is a lot of flutter just to get publicity. And I don't really like that. I don't agree with that, because it negates and nullifies the true mission here. And the true mission is to find out what they are. There is something there, and what they actually are. You can't keep sort of crying wolf every 5 minutes.
It appears that you can. It appears that
it appears you can. Yeah, it appears you can make a career out of it, which is okay.
Yeah.
So I'll be in that dock with you. Okay, we'll go down together. But my main point, I forgot what was my train of thought, Ryan. I was
CE5.
Oh, yeah,
You were
Stargate. I was Stargate, wasn't I? I was on about yeah. Yeah. So could you, right? Would it be possible, not a location, but to actually go into somebody else's mind? Would that be something that you have been asked in the past, or is that something that is possible?
Well, I guess it depends what you mean. Do you mean like occupy another person?
Look through their eyes. If they saw some information which was vital, would you be able to look through their eyes as a remote viewer?
There are some remote viewers who, and again, minds are they're complex things, right? And no two of them are identical. Even identical twins, the second that they are conceived, differences start to happen, between one mind and the next, because it isn't just a structural thing, it's an experiential thing. So I'm sure that there are people with psychic abilities who somehow their mind gives them crystal clear images of the thing, right? But the overwhelming majority of us are not like that. And I don't know of any way to reliably teach somebody to be psychic in that way. Okay. I only know of the ways that I've been taught. And for me and the ways that I've been taught, it does not happen that way. When you are seeing it in controlled remote viewing, that is usually an indication that your imagination is in control of the process now, not your psychic perception, right? Because the mind's eye is a kind of a different mechanism than this. Now, that's not to say your mind will never give you a useful metaphor. It will. But so I guess the answer to the question is no, I've never done that. And I don't believe you would be able to find somebody who could reliably do that, in the way that you might be thinking about, where it's like, okay, I'm going to kind of astral travel to another place and kind of like fit my little spirit body into their body and see what they see. Because it doesn't work that way for me and for most people who do it. It isn't seeing at all, really. And most people in remote viewing would tell you, we kind of all agree, somebody could have done a better job naming it. It is perception, in fact, falls short. Because for me, my best sessions, my best, data retrieval is when I, in fact, have no idea what it looks like, what's happening, where it is. This is when my best work is going to be done, is when I don't know and can't see. And all it is a knowing. It's like just letting my brain control my hand and write the word down without being in the way of it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
I would call it a knowing. It is a knowing, an inexplicable knowing. It is an access to the information and somehow the ability to pull out of that matrix what is true, write it down, say it out loud, describe it, etc. But no, now there are people who, I think it's even public that the government has done some level of experimentation with trying to see, to what degree this ability can be used to, you know, like harm people. Like, I think there's a remote viewer who taught one of my teachers. He's actually on the board of International Remote Viewing Association. His name's Lynn Buchanan. And I believe he's on record that the government asked him, I don't think he ever said who the person was. My guess is it's Saddam Hussein. The government asked him, could you kill Saddam Hussein this way? And he refused to do it. But his belief is that yes, you could do that.
You could. We interesting. We went on the CE5. We're in this field. Just to get back to this, we were in this field, and we heard this puja. I mean, Stephen Greer was like talking this puja and this prayer, and it seemed like we were there for about an hour. Anyway, everyone, it was almost as if they were kind of like watching one of our shows. Okay, they were all like meditating, eyes shut, gone. You know, they were gone. I wasn't. While this was going on, I was looking at the sky. I tell you what, blow me down with a kipper, Ryan. If there wasn't a lot of activity, I saw lights up there, which really were very interesting. Not planes, not satellites, because they weren't going in a straight line. During the meditation, during a group actually meditating. So I then reached out to either side, my cohorts, one of which is sitting below us. I reached out to try and say, look. No. All of them had their eyes shut. I said to one of the people afterwards, I said, when I was walking back with him, and I said, I sort of that meditation's kind of worked, you know, because during it, another thing is in the forest, there was a loud bipedal sound like footsteps, heavy footsteps, and sound of breaking branches. Really heavy it was.
Yeah, it was.
And I wasn't.
It was Steve's secret light show guys working the equipment in the woods.
Maybe.
Kidding.
Maybe. And I wasn't the only one to hear it.
That would be the greatest thing that ever happened to me if Stephen Greer started to, I hate that Ryan Kralik. Please, Steve, do it. You know. But so here's what I want you to think about. Go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
It worked. No, it worked, Ryan. It worked. The meditation, as far as I'm concerned, worked. After the meditation was over, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's that was a good one. Thanks, guy. That was really good." You know, it was pretty dead. It was pretty nothing really going on in the sky. And that's when, like, kind of, I thought, well, sod this for a game of soldiers. And I packed up and went into the forest to see what was in the forest and what was causing that noise. And I've done a video doing that. Right. So I think what it brought home to me was, even though everyone had their eyes shut except me, and I asked one of the CE5 group members, I said, you know, because I thought it was odd that no one was looking at the sky during the meditation. And they said, no, we never do. And I'm like, right. So you have your eyes shut while the meditation's on, and the meditation is the part where everything was kicking off. And they said, yeah. And you have your eyes shut. Yeah. Right. It works out. It makes sense somewhere along the line. I don't know where, but somewhere. And anyway, so it just proved to me, Ryan, that, you know, with the mind collectively thinking and concentrating on a single mission, if you like, a single objective, I think could possibly and does create or manifest these things.
Well, I think it's entirely possible. Now you got to remember too, is before this happened to me, and I don't know how much time we have, but
we're over our time. I mean, you know, if you want
well.
to stop it, we can, and we can continue on another show, because you're actually really quite entertaining to listen to.
Well, thank you. You know, I thought you guys would laugh more, because here people are like, "Oh, Ryan has like a British sense of humor. It's all deadpan," and I'm like, "Oh, this is great. These people are going to love it."
You're dry.
I do
as
my
dry as a
deadpan, and
biscuit.
you're like, "Mm-hmm, mm-hmm."
Yeah, no, I'm not going to rise to it,
That's
Ryan.
a
I'm
very
not gonna rise
British
to it.
Giggles,
response
you know.
to deadpan humour, though, isn't it? It's like blah blah blah. Yeah.
I love Blackadder and Mr. Bean.
Yeah.
No, you are very dry, Ryan. You're like a biscuit.
Oh,
You're very dry in your humor and your delivery.
Well, so I was a skeptic. Now, not that I didn't believe anything was possible. I just didn't believe at all unless I was given, and I'm still that way. I don't believe unless I'm given a reason to. Now, I have been shown some things that allow me to not have as strict a barrier come up, right? It doesn't shoot right up. The bullshit barrier doesn't immediately shoot up, you know, and anytime anything wooey is brought up. But that's a reflex I still have to fight. But every single thing that Steve Greer says could be true. I don't have any basis to know for certain whether it is or not. But what I do know is my training, you know, before I wrote books and did podcasts, and what I still do the majority of the time is I'm in marketing, right? And sales. And what marketing and sales really are is pattern recognition and human behavior, right? So just by virtue of what I do for a living, I'm a trained charlatan, if that's what I want to be. I'm a trained con artist. In fact, con artist, a lot of people don't know what it means. It means confidence. That's what it stands for. It's a confidence game or a confidence trick. And fundamentally, it is the things that you would say or do to get another person to arrive at their own conclusion that you're trustworthy, not tell them that you're trustworthy. Does that make sense? Like if you watch Better Call Saul, I'm sure they have Better Call Saul. You can watch it over there.
Oh yeah, no,
and
like
Jimmy does does the watch scam where he's wearing the watch, right? Yeah, and the guy says, "Oh," or if they find a watch on a passed out guy, he's like, "Oh, what is it? Oh, it's just, you don't worry about it," right? He's doing the thing that you would do if you want the other person to not pay attention to the watch. That makes the other person pay attention to the watch. It makes the whole thing their idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what it is, right? And marketing, Tide with bleach does this to you. Unilever does this to you. Michelob does this to you. You know, if you understand these behaviors of people, then you're off to the races. So what that also means, though, is I know what to look for. I know what the tells are in behavior that indicate somebody might be engaging in these practices. Okay. Let me tell you what rule number 1 is. And this is actually a poorly trained con artist, right? Or a con artist with no training. They're trying to be a con artist, but they're just not particularly good at it. A bad con artist never says, "I don't know." But they are conning you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Our human nature would say, the last thing we want to do if we want people to believe us is introduce doubt. It's the instinct that we have. So if I didn't have any training and I'm relying on instinct, I would be steadfast in my facial expressions. I wouldn't, you know, facial expressions don't tell you if somebody's full of shit. Because of this, that's exactly what human nature would have you do, is control your facial expressions. You know,
look to the left. You look to the left then.
Not reliable of anything really. Just means that you're thinking, you're accessing possibly parts of your brain, and you definitely can't tell now when everybody gets all their data from podcasts, and half the time the screen's flipped around anyway. But you know, so when I look at somebody, that's the first, and I want to know, are they being honest? They're making claims, and I want to know if those claims, if it's somebody who I think can be trusted. The first thing I'm looking for is, I'm counting the number of times they say, I don't know. If you and I are just having a conversation, right? And you don't particularly care if I consider you an authority on the topic, and you have some information about it, you offer the information. When you don't have information, what do you say?
I don't know.
I don't know. Or you say, that's a good question, I wonder. And you might say, gee, what I think might be, right? That's a regular conversation.
Yeah.
And even when you talk to an expert on something, you're going to get into areas where they're going to say, yeah, we don't have any information about that. We just don't know. I don't know. And so when I see people making claims and almost never hear them say, I don't know. Enormous red flag. I do not need to continue to evaluate.
Yeah.
Really. Right?
Yeah, but
Now,
I think a lot of the people that, you know, kind of like in public eye, they won't say I don't know because of humility. You know, they're
then
not
they're
going to say,
full of shit.
yeah, but they're not going to say, well, actually, to be honest, I don't actually know, because, you know, people look up to them and think, oh, well, you know, kind of, you've made previous claims and you know this, and you know, you're in with the in crowd when it comes to.
But what
your
you're saying
chosen
is,
sphere.
because people look up to them, that made them a liar. Fine, they're still a liar, right? And I've said this a number of places before, and I mean it, and I believe it in my soul. If ever you hear me saying, oh, no, none of those things can be possible, because what I have is the absolute truth, and there's just no doubt about it, turn the channel, forget about me, because that is somebody, and this happens. Somebody started out as someone who could be trusted. My guess would be that Steve Greer falls into this category. He started out as somebody who really did say, wait a minute, if a bunch of this stuff is true and people are being lied to about it, that's wrong. And it is. It is wrong. There are extenuating circumstances, and there are lists of reasons why information like that is controlled and that there's a benefit to it. But if it's at the level that it appears to be, where, you know, whatever, Raytheon has crashed crafts from other worlds, and we don't get to know about that because you're afraid we'll stop going to church where they teach us to do what you say, that's evil, and that's wrong. And he probably did start out with very altruistic goals. But what I see now is somebody who his main priority is remaining the world's foremost expert, which is why he introduces himself as the world's foremost expert. The world's foremost expert does not need to tell you he is the world's foremost expert. It goes before him.
Yeah.
In fact, someone with confidence training, someone with the basic training given someone with, for instance, a master's degree in marketing, would know. Don't say that. Don't say it. Don't be the best dressed guy at the meeting. Don't do it.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of what you want. In fact, what you want to do is appear humble, because that's what's going to get you the best results.
And Natalie, don't think you're getting away scot-free. Even by association, you're guilty.
Thanks. I need to put up a little denial here. It's like I'm no part of this. I don't know enough about it to have an opinion.
Wait a minute.
Now, regarding seeing things, okay, you said that you saw things, okay? And I guess I got to try to be careful here, because to a certain extent now.
Why bother now?
Well, I represent an organization, and what I don't want to do is be out there irritating the board, and they'll fire me. But and I like doing the job. So have you ever been in a meditation pod or a float tank?
No.
Me neither.
No.
Me neither. But you know what I have done? Taken hallucinogens. And when I was
boy.
I know. When I was 18 years old, the first and only time, Scout's honor, that I ever took a hallucinogen, I saw things, right? Visuals, they call them, or they did at that time. And I remember for couple of weeks after that, I was just completely blown away. And what I kind of adopted was the idea that, and I'm by no means saying that this is still how I feel about it. It is not. But at the time I said everybody should have to do this before they graduate high school. Because the reason I felt that way then is because prior to that, you do not necessarily have a good grounds to understand how much perception can mislead you, right? The things that I saw under the influence of that compound were not happening, or at least I don't see them any other time, right? And yet here I was, my perception was telling me that they were there, that they were happening. And it's not only, I mean, your mind is capable of that without the compounds, right? If you don't believe me, go into a dark, quiet room and stay there until you can't take it anymore. I mean, completely dark. They just put out a study, and it's through peer review, I think, but you know, it's brand new, that basically shows that the reason that you dream is because if you don't, the amount of time that you sleep at night is less than required for your other senses to start taking control of the visual parts of your brain. Right? Because just the absence of data will cause your brain to, you know, start looking for other ways to get data. So, you know, you can do, if you close your eyes and just let your mind go, it will start to do things that you see that are not really there, right? Now, I'm not saying that you were hallucinating lights in the sky. I'm just saying that visual perception alone, we already know that there's lots of things that can modify, enhance, even create perceptions. And so just even seeing something with your own eyes, especially when it's in an environment like that, where it's like, hey, it could be a lot of things. I wouldn't walk away from that totally convinced of anything. That makes sense.
But during
I have
that,
to admit, that's what I got from it. I didn't see anything until the last 5 minutes, and I saw one thing, and I don't know what it was. And it was quite interesting experience for that, in that respect.
Another important aspect of a lot of what you would call a confidence trick or a confidence game is letting the bystander do the selling for you, right? This is a common theme in many tricks like this. And I'm not saying anybody is intentionally tricking anybody. It'll happen on its own. But you know, whoever is leading the meditation, whoever it might be, they do not have to point out the thing and say, look there, you can see it. All they have to do is wait for a member of the group to do that, which will invariably happen. Because if you get whatever, a dozen personalities who all agreed to do this, 8 of them are not skeptics. 8 of them are believers. Sounds like there might have only been 1 or 2 skeptics there last night. But somebody's going to see something, right? You don't even need to be the guy that says, hey, look at that. I did it. I did it with my $9.99 app. Get yours today. Somebody else will do that for you. That makes sense. And it's not just, con men and salesmen and marketing people that know this. The government knows it. Go on some of these YouTube channels. These guys used to be in the CIA, and listen to what they have to say. They're going to describe these confidence tricks to you. It's just an understanding human behavior.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Our human behavior, is very predictable. Society has manipulated us in such a manner that it's hard to see out of the bubble in which we've been placed. We are really, for all intents and purposes, we're just work slaves to
meaning-seeking pattern recognizers.
Yeah, and it's very hard to get out of that bubble, to see out of that bubble, and that brings me on to something with your heady days of Woodstock and hallucinogenic drugs.
How old do you think I am? I
I'm
wasn't
not
old
gonna
enough to go to Woodstock 94.
I'm not going to answer that. The lighting's pretty bad where you are anyway, isn't it? But what I was gonna say
Jeez,
was,
it hurts.
have you before the information, this concept, this theory, which I've got a lot of credence in. I put a lot of credence in. I'm gonna go further down this rabbit hole. I may even buy the book. I probably will.
Well, you can get it on Amazon for $9.99 Kindle, $18.99 paperback, $24.99 hardcover.
You are slick. You are very, very slick. You could sell ice cubes to the Eskimos. I'm telling you. Let me get it.
Well, it's just that it debuted at #1 in physics, #1 in cosmology, number 15 in philosophy.
Did it really?
It did.
Wow. Okay, people, look on Amazon. It from us, an information first framework, and the purpose of consciousness. Yeah. So 383 pages. Wow, that's quite a big book.
Well,
how long did it take
spaces in between the paragraphs.
Is there pictures in it? Did you pad it out with pictures?
No,
there's no pictures.
No,
when
I felt like they were wasted pages, and frankly, mostly what they were, and when it was going to have pictures, they were mostly pictures of scientists that regular people haven't heard of. And it's like, what do I really? What do I get out of kind of parroting? I establish in the book that almost none of it are my ideas. What I contributed was a synthesis, bringing together of many other ideas. There's only a handful of things that I even say that nobody's ever said. But when somebody like me is writing a book like that, they're like, oh, okay, well, I want to bring in points of credibility wherever I can, and that's kind of where I was at when I was trying to figure out what pictures to put in it. But at the end of the day, what kept me from doing it was the amount of work involved to get clearance to use them.
Yeah.
It's just not worth the effort. Right.
Yeah.
So no pictures.
So really, I did gather that. I did gather that with the book. I think I kind of that it's kind of the essence of the book was cherry picking different ideas, putting them together, and as you say, putting a path, giving it a pathway, so that it's got a direction which is in this theory of information, which does make sense. So you're putting a collaboration of work together and giving it a pathway which is in a logical direction. Have you, when you were younger, growing up, was there any point in your life where you kind of had a head scratch moment where you thought, that's paranormal? This is before the information theory. Was there any paranormal part to your life that you had which maybe could have contributed to your mindset of putting this book together?
Well, the book is also to a certain extent autobiographical, because it isn't just these theories. It's the story of how this came to exist, right? It's just like those impressions are through my mind, and that's what they are. So is this framework. There's a number of things in my life that if they hadn't happened just so, can I show you something?
If it's legal.
It's legal. You tell me when the audience has had enough. But I also want to address Sasquatch Sister here, who says, presumably she, they would love to be able to remote view. Let me show you some. Let me show you some. If I can find it. Car in the way.
He has his run away, isn't he?
All right. I was about 5 years ago, going on 6. I was depressed. Okay. I had sold my company, and I thought that's what you do. And it had never occurred to me that that could lead to anything other than money. But it can, you see. You must have a purpose in life. Or I must anyway. So I start back into all these goofball topics that I'd followed for a long time, like UAP. And somebody somewhere said, read this book by Ingo Swann called Penetration. And Ingo remote viewed the aliens. And I was, that's another story, but I was familiar with remote viewing, and at least enough to understand that if, it might be worth reading. So I get the book and I read it, and it is about aliens, kind of, but mostly it's about remote viewing. And I was so intrigued by it that I bought Lynn Buchanan's book and started reading it. Halfway through Lynn Buchanan's book, I said, okay, I'm teetering on the brink already, right? I'm not doing all that well emotionally. So maybe psychic spies from China trying to steal your mind's elation is not the best thing for me right now. But I want to know if this is true or not. But I also want to be healthy. Great, I got an idea. I'll just figure out right now if it's true. And if it's not, I can stop. I went and got a marble out of a junk drawer, and I put it in my pocket. First, I wrapped it in some wrinkled paper and put it in my pocket. You see, that way nobody will know it's a marble. It won't be poking out marble like from my shorts. I went and got my wife, and I said, come here and do what I say and don't think. And I gave her a piece of paper and a pen. And I said, I'm going to give you some numbers, and I want you to write them down. And then I want you to make a squiggle on the page without thinking. Just do it. Then, using only nouns, I want you to write down the words that your mind knows describe what's in my pocket. And don't think. And she says, okay. I said, all right, here's the numbers. The numbers were 7891. And you can see here, see how this one's wrinkled? That's because it was wrapped around the marble in my pocket, right? And this one was the one that I took, okay? And then I said, write down the numbers and make a squiggle. Actually, I had her do it 4 times, apparently. And then I said, write down the words. And she wrote them down: round, smooth, green, and small. And then I said, now sketch your impression of the thing. And she drew that circle with those 3 lines in it. That's the marble.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wish I could remote view. That's a perspective and an attitude problem, not an issue of abilities. My wife never remote viewed again after that. And now I'm editor of a remote viewing magazine, for crying out loud. So all people can do this. Most people don't, because they believe that they can't, or they think it's some kind of magical ability. It's not. Probably every living thing. The horses can do this probably better than you can. They just can't tell you. They just can't write down the words. Because the part of our brain that developed later that makes this more difficult to do, that's new. Our horse brain, the part of our brain that's good at this is horse brain.
But the terminology, I mean, your wife, if your wife could have been, with her ability then, in some corners, would be called a medium.
Everyone has this ability.
Yeah, but a medium, almost a spiritualist medium, have the ability to preconceive, have the ability to kind of, not so much a medium, I suppose, but have the ability to a knowing, a drawing out from the ether, if you like,
You mean
of
psychic?
knowledge.
Informational substrate, if you're asking me what
Yeah.
I like informational substrate.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like terminology, informational substrate. That's it. But you know, obviously, to other people, it could be there is something there. There is something there. There is a.
Depends what
I
you
mean,
mean by thing. But
I always call it like we have our brains. Yeah. Well,
I have mine.
well, yeah. Mine, I must admit, after this podcast, I think it's sort of mushed up. But we have our brains, but we also have a consciousness. Now, I believe that our consciousness is a river, almost like the boson particle. It's all pervasive. It's all around us, and we dip in and dip out of it. Very often, with I've cited this before. Very often with coma patients, when they've been in a coma, they will know when a relative has come in, kissed their forehead, and they're technically brain dead. It's been documented. They're technically brain dead. There's nothing firing off in the synapses. They're basically boom. That's it. They're just kept alive by a machine.
Mhm.
But they will wake up and they'll go, "Oh, nurse, thank you for coming in, holding my hand. Thank you for opening up the window when I was hot. You saw that? Yeah, yeah. I knew. So I honestly do think with the experiences that I've had, that I honestly think that there is a external consciousness that we all share, that we dip in and dip out of. It's just knowing, almost like an antenna, we kind of like trigger into it. And I think that goes some way to understanding.
Well, that's because
why.
you obviously haven't been listening.
I have listened to you. I have.
Because you see,
Except when you went
it's an
on about
informational
horses.
substrate. No, I get what you're saying, and I think that you're right. I just think that the terminology that a lot of us have been choosing to use, based on what's presented to us as available terminology, is not as representative of where our lexiconagular knowledge is.
Easy for you to say.
This is how new words happen. People like me show up. They say lexiconagular.
Yeah.
But you're right. There is more to the creation than physical material. And if you know the right, things to look for across, I have not yet found an aspect of reality that I've examined this way that I cannot explain better with this framework than with others. The problem with consciousness is, calling it consciousness, is what is consciousness? Give me an example of the only empirically extant example of consciousness that you can. It's going to be a living thing with a brain. And in fact, even the consciousness first people, they always have to write it into the middle of the paragraph that even though we know once a bullet goes through the brain, consciousness stops existing there. When somebody has a brain injury, their consciousness changes, right? The only thing we know of that is conscious are things with brains. And yet, something like 99 point infinity of nines, configurations that exist in the universe, do not have brains. So why is consciousness the best word for this?
No, because consciousness is not just selected to living, breathing, sentient beings like us or animals. You could say that trees, to a certain degree, are conscious. Trees will know, and they will communicate to each other.
But those are living things, and they have physical structures that are similar to nervous systems.
They do, yes.
If you Dean Radin and other people, Rupert Sheldrake has exhaustively studied this. And Rupert Sheldrake was one of the first people that evaluated my framework. And he said, yes, it seems like what you're saying is similar to morphic resonance. And it is. But you harm one plant, you go into the room with another plant, and that plant exhibits behavior that indicates it knows something is not going to go its way, right? That's what I'm saying is now that is a very rudimentary consciousness. Same with if you poke an amoeba with a needle, it will sense that it's being poked. It will engage in self-preservation, right? That's really the fundamental thing that we're looking for consciousness is awareness of existence, right? Awareness of surroundings.
Life always goes to life. That's one thing that's one thing that is inherent in everything that is aware, and that is life goes to life. And they've even, do you remember that experiment they did? It was an AI experiment, and they had a room, and they had a randomized AI dot going around the room. And it was totally random. It could go wherever it wanted in this room. And the only thing else in this room was a table with a plant. And this AI generated dot, and it could go anywhere it wanted. Nearly every time it would go towards that plant in that room for no reason at all. It had no idea that what that plant stood for, what that plant was. It just went automatically to that edge, that corner of the room that had that plant, AI plant. So everything wants life, needs life, and is a collective of life. Now, whether that is part of the joint field of information or consciousness, maybe information multiplies that way it needs. I mean, that's another question, isn't it? Does this information field require us? Or, as I mentioned earlier in the program, like 3 days ago, I think it was now, does it require us?
It was Tuesday.
I think it was possibly Tuesday. I think it was 3 o'clock it started, didn't we? But
I'm just kidding.
Honestly, I'm enjoying every moment. I thought you were just going to come on and be sort of like word salad, really boring, but no, you're not. You really, you're a nice guy. Really,
I save that for the squares.
Yeah, exactly.
They won't let me talk about acid trips from 30 years ago. Jesus.
Yeah, and like Slayton, Stephen Greer. So why not? Let's do it.
Oh, I did do
you're
that.
Not getting away with that, Nat. You're in a dock as well, Natalie.
I'm merely observing.
He's not going to pay attention.
All right, look. Can you stay on just for a little minute, because I'm going to wrap the show up, but just so I can have a word with you afterwards.
Yes, but I'll tell you what I got to do. I got to pop off to the loo.
Okay, you pop off to the loo. I'm going to say, look, people.
And it just occurred to me in the shower this morning, right? Taking a shower for the day, and I say I'm gonna use that phrase, pop off to the loo. I knew that would come up because I have the prostate of a much older man. But and then Skip to the Loo, My Darling started playing in my head. I'm like, holy shit, that nursery rhyme is about going to the bathroom.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Oh, doesn't it? Yeah, I know.
But anyway, yes, if I can skip to the loo, my darling, I can come right back after that. That's
great. And I just want to say thank you, everyone watching. We really do appreciate it. And it's been fun, and thank you very much for I just double check, see if there's any questions. Let's have a little look. Anyone got any questions? Roxy, if there's any questions, let us know.
Sasquatch sister, you can remote view. Go on the internet, find a website that has targets, follow the instructions and do it. And don't think. If you think, you stink. Show, prove to yourself that you're right about all this stuff.
Okay, cool. All right. Listen, everyone. Oh, I got a message there. All right then. Everyone, thank you very, very much indeed for watching. Really do appreciate it. Take care. God bless. And from all of us, we'll see you again soon. All right. Bye-bye.